We have a lot to cover in this chapter, so we want to jump back into group performance. It won't be a terribly long session, but I want to do make sure that we get at least this section covered before we resume on Tuesday. As always, make sure again that for full attendance today, that you keep your camera on, that you place yourself in the camera. Most of y'all will probably use camera phones a lot more than me, so this shouldn't be a terribly complicated process. But place yourself in the camera where your head and shoulders can be seen for full credit. As always, you're welcome to stay if you can't be on camera. So one of the things, again, we want to consider is we talked about, you want to consider this for yourself. You want to consider this, in terms of knowledge for the class, but just in general. When are some times where, you can do some things okay by yourself? When are some times that you might need some help, as we all do sometimes? So we're looking at here whether or not groups actually outperform individuals. And we also want to look at, again, as we've talked about throughout, this is a science class. So in science, we want to look at the patterns where groups are more likely to perform well. There are certain tasks where are best suited for individuals. There are others where it's probably better that you do them in a group. So we're going to explore some of those situations throughout. As always, when you see a concept in italics, study that closely and prepare for the final exam. An exam is coming up quick, so most importantly, please go back and read and review as necessary. Maybe do some practice engage exercises just to kind of get a sense of how well you're retaining information. As always, all the lectures are available for you if there's anything that you miss and need to review again. If you do so, don't just rely on the written notes, but also make sure you listen to the discussion. We're talking about groups here. So I always encourage study groups and preparing for the final exam. I think that can be very helpful. And then anything that I can do to help and assist you during office hours, don't hesitate to let me know. So process loss is reduction in group performance. And again, my hope for you all is that, one day, if you haven't already, that you will run your own organizations and groups, run your own businesses, head up some organization. And one of the things that you want to be keenly mindful about is if the group is performing at the levels that you want them to. Particularly, right, Jakira, as leaders, a lot of times it can be really easy for us to feel like, hey, I'm a dope leader, so clearly everything is going straight, right? You want to look at, again, what's your performance. So, if you're managing a Foot Locker and you see that your sales are down, 30%, obviously not in this type of environment, because I'm pretty confident. I was gonna say everybody's sales down, but I can't necessarily say that that's true. I bought all types of kicks in the pandemic, quite frankly, but that's neither here nor there. But in general, most businesses are down in sales. So you can't necessarily look at, something like COVID, but if you see that your sales have gone down the last 3 years, Ron, you want to begin to look at what are some things that are happening. If we're trying to build enrollment and we see that, again, certain levels aren't being achieved, we want to examine what's going on there. If we want to send a certain amount of students to graduate school, and we're not doing that, we need to begin to look at exactly what's going on. And group processes can help with that. But again, the process loss is related to whether it's an additive task, a conjunctive, or disjunctive task. These speak to, there are some tasks where, again, you can see people's individual contributions and you can possibly do certain tasks without the group. So again, if you're trying to it's junior versus senior class tug of war, as strong as you may be, Ron, you're not going to win it by yourself. You're going to need some help. And you may not be able to see who's pulling the hardest or what contributions people are making within that process. Another important aspect of group, and keep in mind, right, we're talking about, group processes, particularly related to group performance. And one of the things, and this is definitely something I encourage you all, Latavia, as future leaders and present leaders. I'm sure there have been situations where you've already led. But one of the things that can be very helpful is brainstorming. And even if you're not familiar with this term, all of you have done brainstorming before. You have a plan where Ron, tell me a challenge that you have had in being an RA. What are some challenges that you've had as an RA that maybe there was a problem that a recurring problem that you wanted to see a way to solve
it? Let's see. Perfect example. So again, we're all adults, right?
We are.
So out here, the I don't want to call it the motto, but the message is being out here is a privilege. I'm at the Rowan, I'm off campus. So being out here is a privilege, right? But then you have those repeat offenders that, again, everybody out here knows what they're not supposed to do. Now, again, as an RA, I tell people, I'm not your father, nor your guardian. You know what you're not supposed to do. If you choose not to follow directions, be smart. Don't endanger nobody else, right? But then you got those repeat offenders that, like verbatim, we did room checks and it's like, yo, you got your whole kit laid out. We go downstairs, we come back out, you still got your whole kit laid out.
Your whole kit?
Yeah, like illegal activity kit, let's call it that.
Okay, for sure.
And it's like the 3 minutes that it took me to get from the door to downstairs and back upstairs, you didn't try to clean up once.
Right.
So, discussing with my RC, like, ways to prevent it, because again, it's the bad apples that ruin it for the bunch,
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to her about, like, rather than base it on, hey, you could come out here based on your GPA because it's 2.5. Anybody 2.5, to be honest with you. I was like, maybe you should do it based on, housing recommendation, no major infractions in the system, things like that. So that we was kind of going back and forth about things like that. GPA still matters, yes, but you can have a 4.10 and still be a drug dealer. You still cannot follow the rules. That like basing or judging somebody based off of their, GPA, that image, that's not correct. Because again, I got a 3.88. You don't know what I do in my free time.
Absolutely.
You see? So that's kind of the brainstorming process we had back and forth.
That's a really good example. And the issue there, so again, where illegal drug use is the issue and the challenge that you're trying to deal with, you obviously can't allow that to go on in the dorms.
Yeah.
And if it continues to go on, at a certain point, the RAs get held responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, look, what can we do to eliminate this problem? Other issues that I'm sure you've had to deal with will be theft. So it's like, okay, look, when people come into the dorm, they need to feel like their stuff is secure. They ain't got to worry about nothing. And for right or for wrong, part of that is going to be your responsibility to try and brain down. And again, we talk about empiricism, right? Numbers. We can see, hey, last fall, it was 32 reported cases of theft. This fall, it's just been 6. So these are things, again, where we can look at what your results are. This is really important because a lot of times, in some of my conversations with young people, some of that gets lost in terms of exactly how we're evaluated on whether or not we're accomplishing our goals. But it's also important to understand that in trying to solve a problem, find a solution to a problem, it's very rare that the leader is the only person with good ideas. So, but oftentimes people will feel, particularly in the face of certain leaders, they might feel intimidated of really expressing their views. Or people may feel like, we see this in class all the time where a question will be asked, somebody will have a really good idea, a good concept, but they won't say nothing. Like, man, I was afraid I was going to be wrong. I don't now. Again, that's always baffled me because, like, it's like, what are we going to do? Like, pour hot tar on you if you get a question wrong in a class? Like, it's okay. But the reality is that many human beings, feel, a level of discomfort in speaking up in public settings. So you as a leader, Ron, have to create a platform to allow people to do that, but you got to allow them to do it in a way where it can be honest. One of my biggest frustration at times, Jakira McLeod, is we'll be having faculty meetings, committee meetings, and somebody might be promoting something that everybody know is probably not the greatest idea, or there might be some shortcomings in execution. But in the meeting, don't nobody say nothing. Soon as we get out the meeting, everybody got all types of things to say. I thought this was Suzu. I thought this was Suzu. I thought this. Why wasn't this being said? But a lot of that, again, is reliant on the leader themselves. So again, you all are going to be leaders in your fields. So Maisha, you have to create a framework. And sometimes it might mean that you got to look, just give me your comments anonymously. So it may have to be done that way sometimes, but you really want to a brainstorming session involves people throwing their ideas at the wall where it's no bad idea. And even if you disagree vehemently with Ron's idea, Jakira, you ain't gonna say nothing like, oh, that's a stupid ass idea. Why you say that? You maybe could think it. We could text each other, privately during the meeting, but don't say that out loud. And research has shown, again, this is not just, hypothetical. Research has shown pretty consistently that nominal groups produce a greater number of better ideas. So again, the more that, people speak freely, the more that people feel like, the better ideas that you'll be able to get. And a lot of times it'll be a combination of ideas. It can also increase group cohesiveness. In many groups, I'm sure you've seen this at times, cliques and factions can form, sometimes based upon your ideas. So brainstorming can also help to breed some cohesion where two competing ideas can be blended into one. Some factors that reduce the effectiveness of brainstorming very quickly. And again, all of this is in your text. You don't have to write down all of this. This has already been written down for you. It's being recorded. So production blocking. So one of the things, again, as a leader, sometimes people may have a really good idea, but you gotta somebody running the meeting, like Dr. Kareem Muhammad, that is just talking and talking and talking, and Latavia to forget her point now. So you got to make sure, again, that you create, that you keep the floor moving. Don't allow one person to just dominate the discussion. Free writing speaks to as other people contribute ideas. Sometimes individuals will see like their ideas are less needed. So Ron, you may have a really good idea, but you feel like, oh, well, Maisha already said that. And say, okay, cool, I feel you, but Ron, tell me what you were gonna say anyway. Let me still hear it. It might be some nuance there, that might be a little bit different from what Maisha broke down. So let me still hear it anyway. So again, so as a leader, Maisha, you gotta pull people in. It's gonna be people that want to free ride and don't want to say nothing at all. It's gonna be your task, like, hey, look, Latavia, you've been very quiet. Like, tell me what you think about this idea. If you know that she's a little shy, ask her to do that in private and encourage her to do it in the public setting next time. Again, people may be hesitant if they feel like they're going to look foolish or they're going to be criticized. I'm sure we've all been, well, I'll speak for myself, that we've been in meetings where they'll say, hey, what do you think about this? And then somebody will say something like, dude, why are you even suggesting? Like, why you ask me that? So again, people have to have the space to speak freely without being criticized. And then performance matching. That again, if you see that, other people, a few people are doing all the work, or they're being, only a few people are being rewarded for the work, it's not going to encourage other people to really want to contribute. Other things that, make brainstorming, particularly electronic brainstorming, effective. And this just speaks to the point that increasingly in our society, you know, ideally we're having these meetings and discussions, Maisha, all in person, but increasingly there might be email chains or meetings like this where things are done electronically and digitally. And some benefits of this, Ron, is that, you know, you don't have to wait. You can chime in and you don't have to wait till, like, you know, somebody else finish their long-winded point. So if we're all in an email thread, you can just throw your ideas out and you don't just have to wait till like somebody finish in the same way that you might with a conversation. You can keep track of people's input. So again, if you see that, like, you know, Jakir has made like 8 comments and Maisha's just made 1, you know, we could do some things to balance it out. I got you 1 second, Mr. Anderson. And again, it also, electronic allows for more cohesion. There's not as much, like, you know, competition and contest, so, like, you know, get noticed with the great idea or feel like you're being talked over. And you can see everybody's ideas in front of you a lot more clearly, where a lot of times in a public setting, you might be so intent, again, like, so Latavia may have been waiting so long to get her point across that she's just trying to focus in on remembering what she said as opposed to actually listening to what everybody else is saying, which is the point of the process. Ryan Anderson.
A problem came to mind. I feel like it'll fall on the performance matching, you know, doing as much work as you kind of see necessary based on who else is doing the work. But like, I had a situation like 2 semesters ago. Basically, we were deciding the group or the class topic as a whole, right? So we're all going to do the same topic and all do our different takes on it. And if I do so remember correctly, it was between topic 1 was dealing with families outside of the social structure. So, you know, families that kind of, I don't want to say don't fit in, but, you know, families that's on welfare benefits, families that are in poverty, things like that, right? Just kind of a broader topic. And then the other topic was talking about the effects of gun violence on families, right? Now, I was going for topic 1 because I felt as if it was more vague and it allowed for more to be talked about. Now, again, we're doing this as a class, so we're doing votes. So ultimately, the topic that I didn't want won. So, but my professor allowed me to like explain myself, right? So I was like, you know, if it doesn't win, can I explain to the class, like, you know, why I feel as if the first one would be better, allow for more information and so forth, so on. So I did that. You know, you get a couple of head nods, like, yeah. But then ultimately, the running idea from the one person that said it was like, oh, I know about guns. I know about gun violence. That's easy to think about. Let's do that. And I'm not going to necessarily say that kind of affected my productivity. But as far as cohesion, for me personally, it wasn't there. Because it was kind of like, you know, y'all kind of just went along with the first person that said, oh, gun violence, that's easy. Y'all didn't give the first one a thought. Y'all didn't think about it. It's kind of like you let the first person do all the thinking, which why I kind of feel like that'll fall on the performance matching, because the first person did all the thinking. He's just agreeing with it. Like, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. They thought about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great example for in terms of how groups make decisions, but just in general, that a lot of just how we talked about before, the chapter on conformity, how quickly people will give over their ideas and thinking to the group.
Yeah.
Like, so obviously, like in a situation like that, where it's like, okay, the motivation may be, I don't want to think too hard about this. I just want to get this grade. And I've been there. I can understand that. But there are many more serious situations in life where people do that all the time, where sometimes just the loudest voice just wins out, as opposed to what we're looking at here, Ron, persuasive arguments theory, where, you know, kind of what you were attempting to do, where it's like, okay, look, let's look at this logically and rationally and just really break down the pros and cons of this and make a decision like accordingly. But oftentimes it's really important to know, like, you know, so as politicians, for example, somebody like a Barack Obama, like he will want to, like, you know, appeal to your reason, appeal to your intellect and make an argument. And that's really important to do. And for somebody like me, that might be really appealing. But it's important to understand that many human beings don't necessarily react that way. the best way to, so what is the leading, the most effective way to appeal to groups? What's the most effective tool to appeal to their what? To appeal to their what? So persuasive argument theory will be trying to appeal to their intellect. They're like, look, I'm not trying to make you into a communist by wearing a mask. Let me show you some some good reasons and information why you maybe could wear a mask. You decide for yourself, but all I'm going to do is present the information for you, and you just decide for yourself. So that's appealing to your intellect. They're like, hey, I want you to drink Red Bull as opposed to this other energy drink because it has this benefits and it doesn't have this shortcoming. Again, I'm trying to appeal to your intellect. That ain't how most things work, though. Maisha, where do most people try and appeal? Where do most people try and appeal to?
They try to appeal to your biases.
Say it again?
They try to appeal to your biases.
To a degree. Something even more general than that, though. Something even more general than that. What? So y'all remember the ABCs of behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So explain them to me again. Anybody?
Okay. You want to go? You can go.
A is affect, B is behavior, and C is cognitive.
Good. So that C, that cognitive, I'm trying to appeal to your thinking. They're like, look, that I'm not trying to again, if you want to, dislike homosexuals, okay, that's cool. But at least let me give you some facts where, like, when you say, okay, there ain't no gay animals, like, here's some facts. There actually are gay animals that God made, himself. Again, what you want to believe about that is up to you. But let's look at the facts. Let's look at the facts about pedophilia and homosexual behavior. And you make your own conclusions based upon that. If, again, eat whatever you want to eat, but I'm going to appeal to you. I'm going to use facts to appeal to, maybe encourage you to eat a little bit more fruit and greens and a little bit less red meat. But those things ain't as effective. That's cognitive. The main thing that people appeal to is the affective, your emotions. Not how you think about something, how you feel about something. So keep this in mind. So as a politician, like Hillary Clinton may have been a better candidate, but if people ain't really feeling you, it's going to be tough. A preacher can have a really good message. He got to fill his flock with some kind of emotion. Now, in my view, oftentimes some of our religious leaders work to, appeal to the emotion more than the head, and that's where a lot of them lose me. It's like, okay, so explain the whole women in rib thing for me again. And so now you had Cain and Abel, right? And then the whole world so you got Cain, Abel, Joseph, and Eve. So how did the world get populated from that? Walk me through that again. With 3 dudes and 1 woman, that really only seems to be able to function one way from what I've observed. So again, but it's also important to understand, like I said, that there are things that, we are human beings and we're emotional creatures. So those kind of things are important. But in group dynamics, sometimes, Ron, yes, the person that yells the loudest and that may get the best feeling, oftentimes may win out. Now, groupthink, related to what you were just talking about, Ron, is what we want to avoid in group settings. So groupthink is where the individuals give up their individual thought process and everybody just thinks it's a group. And in this way, if the group thinks this way, I have to think this way. And we see this in all types of settings. If they don't like the Crips, I can't like the Crips. If all Black people are supposed to be down with this week, then this is how I'm supposed to feel about it. if the Cowboy fans are supposed to like, if Cowboy fans are supposed to hate the Redskins, I don't know nothing about them, but I'm finna hate them too. And of course, that's a small example, but just, many cases are like that. Again, within religion, quite frankly. There are many people that have the same religious questions I had as a young person. But many people will just go along. And again, deviating from the group can be very difficult, as we've talked about throughout. But in an organization, this is one of the problems, for example, that we have with the police department. That, okay, fine. I do believe that it is possible. Well, I believe that not every officer is racist. That most officers want to do their jobs effectively. But the problem comes in when you have officers that go rogue and the rest of the group just rally behind them, like nobody questions anything. Like, that's problematic. We see this again in political parties all the time. And many organizations fall guilty of this, particularly, Ron, because a lot of leaders, right, they want to surround themselves with people that's just going to tell them what they want to hear. I don't want you all to be those type of leaders. I want y'all to be them type of individuals. So again, in looking at the course of groupthink, and I want to pay close attention to some of the symptoms. So one of the things you see there, closed-mindedness, Ron, closed-mindedness. That again, right, like, look, if you're a business leader, Ron, you got to be aware of new information that you might not want to see. Hey, I may have to start paying workers minimum wage. Maybe you might not want to see that. Like, that's a reality. And you need to start to find a way to deal with that to, like, make it where your business isn't, like, caught short-handed. Increase pressure towards uniformity. So again, if individuals don't kind of conform with the rest of the group, there becomes a lot of pressure on that person to kind of like, get in line. And it leads to all types of effective decision-making. You have an incomplete survey of alternatives. So with again, keep in mind what we talked about with brainstorming. So brainstorming is the tool that we're trying to use to avoid groupthink. So you've been in meetings and you've heard people make to say, well, hey, I want to play devil's advocate. And that's important because, again, it's like, look, we need to think about the unknown and think about, worst case scenarios. And oftentimes in group settings, those kind of things get shut down. And you need to be looking at all the angles. Again, in my leadership roles, I have communicated to folks like, look, it is impossible for me to see everything. I need people around me that are going to cover my blind spots. And to be honest with me, like, don't miss, like, my ego and self-esteem is well intact. I don't need you to be blowing smoke. I don't need you to be just telling me great things. Tell me the truth. Very important. But you got to be the type of individual, Maisha, that really wants the truth. A lot of people say that and they don't. Can you handle bad news? Can you adjust? Can you plan? Can you mobilize? There are some strategies to avoid groupthink. One is to avoid isolation, Jakira, that a lot of times many leaders, like particularly if you have a really successful organization, so say a company like Apple or Google that's been very successful, it would be very tempting, Ron, for them just to keep, hey, shit, we done made like billions of dollars. We didn't change the game like several times over. We got this thing figured out. No. You got to talk to people outside of the office. You got to, like, again, be like, really trying to seek out information. Sometimes, like, you might even want to look at your competitors to terms is like, okay, what are they doing? Let's be honest about what Microsoft might be doing better than us. All types of tech companies, again, like that, so y'all probably haven't even heard of like America Online or stuff like that, have y'all? all types of tech companies that, like, again, used to rule the world, because America Online was one of the first people, Ron. I think they still technically have a business, but at a much, much, much lower level of prestige. Ron or Maisha, I saw two hands up, Maisha and then Ron.
I didn't know I still had my hand up, but just to talk about this topic, I remember just being in an organization and it was like complete isolation. Like anything that we found outside of the organization, trying to bring it back in was always a no. And then the organization started to go down because you don't want to have any new ideas, especially like in today's time, trying to, you have to be new or find something inventive to get attention.
Absolutely. And many organizations unfortunately suffer from that. Go ahead, Rod Anderson.
As soon as you mentioned avoiding isolation, thing that came to my mind is, this is why big tech companies, you hear the rumors, Microsoft is in, contact with Discord. They're trying to buy it for $3 billion, because I feel as if they recognize, okay, cool. Discord has control over this market. Discord is like it's not a Skype, but it's more so of like a I don't know what you want to call it. It's a messaging, it's a communication platform, right? Mm-hmm. Usually people like that game use it, gamers use it. There's Discord. It's just like another Reddit, another form of social media to connect with people of like minds, right? Now, yes, Microsoft has Microsoft Teams. Yes, Microsoft has other things. You got email, Outlook. That's other ways to communicate. But I'm pretty sure Microsoft's seen like, yo, Discord is doing something that nobody else is touching. So let's talk to them. Let's talk about buying them. We're going to offer you this. We might not necessarily, because again, I don't think you can necessarily you can copy in the industry, but a lot of things are patent. Like you can't, copy and paste it word for word. But again, just that idea of, okay, cool, we're not just going to stay Microsoft, Google, Microsoft Word, Excel, this and that. We're going to expand. We see that the people are there. Let's talk to them. What we got to do to own you? What we got to do? What we got to offer? That's kind of how I think about it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great example. As you were speaking, and an example that we've all have seen, I probably have seen more than you all, has been like with the record industry. So, where, for example, when Napster first came out, and they was like, download music and stuff like that, and all the record companies, like, so again, like I still do have some CDs and stuff. I still got some, but like the record companies, again, they tried to shut Napster down. That's when, again, like, the pirating service and like, people posting music online in the late 90s. What they should have did is exactly what, and what some companies eventually did do is what you're talking about with Microsoft. It's like, look here, you may not like the fact that people are getting this music so easily now. And it may be inconvenient, and I feel your copyright concerns and all that. Yeah. You need to get in you need to get down and lay down, because the technology is what it is, and it's not stopping. People are going to be able to download and pirate your shit, dog. Particularly, and people ain't finna, especially you can get 1 or 2 songs on this 18 song album. Hell no, I'm not finna go to this record store and buy this. So this is going to happen. There were some record companies that were really got ahead of that and really began to transition a lot of their catalogs into digital streams and find ways to profit from that. A lot of other cats, they got left out on the cold. They kept wanting to do things the old way and not really looking around and seeing like, look, this is where the industry is going. If you still want to sell music, you're going to have to make some adaptations. But these record companies, Ron, they have been around, many of these companies have been around since the very beginning of the record business. So it's like, dude, we already know, like, we didn't heard all types of stuff. Yeah, CDs finna change this, and yeah, 8-tracks finna change this, and cassettes finna change this. We didn't heard it all before. We good. Get on up out of here. Hey, this is different. People do not need to hold anything in their hand anymore. They don't need to physically come into your record store, dog. Like, so really understanding this, and particularly in the times that we live in where the technology is changing so rapidly, companies that don't adapt to that, like even, where in education, I'm very much a traditionalist. I be wanting people to go, like for me, myself, I would want to go to school the same way that people have for like the last, 500 years, sit in the classroom, in the desk and all that. But if universities don't begin to adapt and adjust as Allen has and start to offer more online courses, like you're killing yourself as a business. Like that's not practical. So it don't matter, Maisha, if I like online education or not. Like I wish that we could still all be in person. I look forward to being able to do that again. I do believe that we learn and I teach better in person. I think that's always going to be true. However, there are some things that we can get online and we can utilize with this. And as leaders, if we don't begin to adjust and adapt these things, like I said, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So keep this in mind, like I said, in your organizations that you run and are part of, that you want to reduce groupthink by, again, making criticism very explicit. So you have to ask your followers sometimes, Maisha, like, okay, look, Maisha, tell me what you'd like. So Dr. McNeely is really good about this, about really asking people honestly, like, okay, look, tell me, what don't you like about it? You got to be responsible with your comments, and you got to be thoughtful. It's even been times, Jakir, we'll be in meetings and I might not say nothing, but he'll read my body language. You're like, all right, Muhammad, come on. I see you over there frowning. Tell me what you're thinking about, man. I know you're going to be saying some crazy stuff in a few minutes, so let's just go ahead and get it out. Come on, Muhammad. But having a space where that is allowed is very, very important. And I think it saved the institution several times from making some potentially questionable decisions. Because I can assure you, not every institution I worked at has necessarily operated that way. More times than not, people just want to do what they want to do and just want to have followers around that will co-sign. We'll begin on Tuesday talking more about training and technology. And again, how this can help, produce better group results, whether it be interactive computer programming, collaborative platforms such as this, that can allow groupthink to be avoided, because some of this is natural components of human nature, where some people just may not always feel comfortable in being in environments where they're encouraged to speak up. But as leaders, you all would do yourselves a great favor if you reduce this within the organizations that you all lead. We'll resume this discussion Tuesday at 2:00. You all have a great day.